Okay, we have some new Chrono Trigger news to discuss. ThePopverse.com put out an article back on October 15th when the author of the article had actually spoken to a couple of higher ups at Square Enix. He spoke to them at PAX West, Seattle, back around the time of the Final Fantasy Tactics Remake release. So they were there covering that. The author of the article spoke to Kazutoyo Mihiro, along with art director Hiroshi Minagawa, about the impending release of the Final Fantasy Tactics Remake. When the author of the article mentioned that his most anticipated remake would be Chrono Trigger, Mihiro agreed with him. Mihiro was quoted as saying, "Yeah, Chrono Trigger is obviously such a popular game. I know there's a ton of fans worldwide. We did put it out on Steam at one point, but it was more of a port than a remaster. But even so, when it came out, we heard even more people talking about it. Hey, we want more of this. We want a full remake or remaster treatment." Yeah, obviously. Mihiro added, "I myself am a big fan of the game as well, so I think from that perspective too, I would really love to see it happen." So clearly Square Enix knows that we're all eager to get our hands on this remake or remaster. I know I certainly am. I think that's huge news. It shows that they are actively, well, I don't know if it shows that they're actively discussing it, but they're aware that people want it. And I think that's been part of what we've seen over many years now, is that a little bit of bits of information will come out and then the rumors will get squashed. So we'll see if something like that happens again. But we did just see the 30th anniversary of Chrono Trigger back on March 10th of this year, 2025. And in some additional news, Japan is going to be having a 30th anniversary celebration with the orchestral arrangement for Chrono Trigger. RPG Site reports an orchestral arrangement to be released in January of 2026. So let's see what it says here. January 2026 in Japan for the release. And then pre-orders in North America are expected around November 27th. The orchestral arrangement is going to be titled Chrono Trigger Orchestral Arrangement, Melodies Across Time. It will feature 10 orchestral tracks from the 30th anniversary concert in Tokyo. The track list is set to include major fan favorites such as Secret of the Forest Wind Scene, Courage and Pride, Frog's Theme, A World Revolution, Last Battle, among others. So even if we don't get a remake or remaster announcement this year or early next, it definitely shows that Square Enix is honoring the legacy of the game and letting the music shine anew. So I definitely am looking forward to the orchestral arrangement for that. I've always loved any of their orchestral arrangements for the Final Fantasy games. I mean, they're incredible. So to finally get that for Chrono Trigger would be amazing. But this does go to show that they haven't completely forgotten about this game. I am still extremely hopeful that we may actually get some firm news on a remake or a remaster. I contend that when they released the pixel remasters for the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 series, that we would soon see something like that for Chrono Trigger. I've been surprised that to date they have not dripped more knowledge about that, but maybe this is the beginning of that. Maybe them putting these quotes out there, hopefully it wasn't just them speaking out of turn. Maybe that's actually a little bit of drip marketing that we may start to see an announcement for this soon. I think like so many others, I want nothing more than to play Chrono Trigger on the Switch, particularly the OLED Switch, or even the Switch 2. It's kind of wild that we haven't seen that yet. And yeah, of course, the ports already exist. We had the DS release of the game many, many years ago. Fantastic, of course, but it does have a few flaws, especially with the music. Then we had the mobile port, probably the most flawed of all of the ports, in my opinion. And then we've had the Steam release, of course. But again, that also has some flaws. And yes, if you've enjoyed these, a new release certainly wouldn't take away from those. They will still exist. They'll still be out there to play. But I do think that there needs to be a definitive version of this game. We've now received a definitive version of Final Fantasy VI. So to me, I feel like it only makes sense to have a definitive version of Chrono Trigger with all of the bugs squashed, with an orchestral arrangement plus the original arrangement of the soundtrack. They did this with the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. It does seem like now that we will be getting an orchestral arrangement of Chrono Trigger, that perhaps means a remaster, whether it's HD 2D or a pixel remaster, just makes sense for Chrono Trigger. They have it right there, and they'll have the orchestral arrangement. We've now seen the HD 2D remakes of Dragon Quest games, the Mana games, they do share some of the visual style with Chrono Trigger. So maybe it'll be a pixel remaster, maybe it'll be an HD 2D type release. I would welcome either. I don't think I would personally like to see a 3D remake. The original was not a 3D game, so it wouldn't make sense to do a 3D remake. It made sense why they did that with Final Fantasy VII, because that was a 3D game. So whatever your opinions on the Final Fantasy remake are, because I do think it was a little bit divisive, I don't think we would ever see that with Chrono Trigger. It just wouldn't make sense. So what does this all mean? I think the remake hope remains alive. If internal folks at Square Enix are paying attention, actively discussing it, at least willing to say so in an interview, then I think an announcement becomes that much more plausible. For collectors and music lovers, the orchestral album gives you a way to experience Chrono Trigger's music in an elevated form, and the opportunity to then put that orchestral arrangement in a potential remake or remaster, just like they did with Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. So to recap, Chrono Trigger Remake, nothing confirmed, but it is getting teased from within Square Enix by some serious names. Chrono Trigger Orchestral Album, 100% real, coming in early 2026. And it's going to be beautiful, I'm certain of it. The takeaway from all this is that the time gates may just be opening again. So let me know in the comments. Would you rather see a definitive HD 2D remake of the game? Would you rather see something like the Pixel Remaster? Or are you interested in a full 3D reimaging of Chrono Trigger like they did with Final Fantasy VII?